July was a surprisingly strong month for adult games. We had new releases pulling in thousands of players, older games reaching major development milestones, and one extremely simple desktop companion outperforming projects that probably cost significantly more to make. So today, we're counting down the top 10 hottest adult games of July 2026. Now, this isn't a list of the 10 best adult games. I haven't personally played everything here, and appearing on this list is not automatically an endorsement. This is a trend report. Each game was scored based on 5 categories: attention, momentum, audience engagement, overall reach, and its relevance to the adult game industry. I also looked beyond raw player counts. A free-to-play game will naturally attract more players than a $20 visual novel. And a game with a major update can be trending without a new release. And some of the large adult games are supported through Patreon and other platforms where public data is much harder to find. With that out of the way, let's get into the top 10. At number 10, we have Rebirth Pub. Rebirth Pub is an upcoming game that mixes dungeon exploration, pub management, and relationship building into one package. During the day, you enter dungeons to gather ingredients and other resources. At night, you use what you collected to operate your pub, earn money, and build relationships with the women around town. The demo arrived on July 9th and offered around an hour and a half of gameplay. The full release is currently scheduled for August 10th. I played the demo recently, and while I thought it still needed some polish, the foundation was interesting. It was trying to be more than another visual novel with a couple of minigames stapled onto it. The dungeon and pub systems actually depended on one another, and that gives the game a gameplay loop that could keep players engaged beyond the story scenes. Rebirth Pub is the most speculative entry on this list. It doesn't have thousands of active players yet because the full game isn't out. It's here because July was the month it began attracting attention immediately before launch. Whether that attention turns into a successful release is something we'll find out soon. At number 9 is Lust Goddess. Lust Goddess is a free-to-play collectible card game that's been around since 2024. So this is definitely not a new release. What it does have is a large and extremely active player base. At the beginning of August, Lust Goddess was still pulling in around 2,000 concurrent Steam players. It also had more than 33,000 followers and over 12,000 user reviews. Those are massive numbers compared to most games in this space. But there's another side to this. The overall reception is mixed, with positive and negative reviews sitting uncomfortably close to one another. That's why Lust Goddess doesn't rank higher. It has the reach, it clearly has the audience, and the developers continue feeding that audience with events and new content. But popularity and player satisfaction are not the same. Lust Goddess is one of the biggest adult games on Steam, but it is also one of the most divisive. At number 8 is Eternum. Unlike most games on this list, Eternum is not here because of Steam player numbers. It's here because its community remains ridiculously engaged. Charybdis updated the version 0.10 progress report again on July 29th. That single progress page had accumulated thousands of likes and more than 1,500 comments. Think about that for a second. Most indie games struggle to generate that kind of reaction when they release a major update. Eternum can generate it by moving a progress bar. That tells us something about the level of anticipation surrounding the next chapter. Eternum has developed one of the strongest communities in the adult visual novel space. The characters, mysteries, humor, world building, and high-quality renders have turned every major update into an event. The downside is that version 0.10 still hasn't been publicly released. So Eternum's position is based on anticipation and community activity rather than a completed July release. Still, thousands of players are actively checking the development page for movement. That's a trend worth paying attention to. At number 7 is Ravager. Ravager is a dark fantasy role-playing game where you play as a dragon instead of the hero sent to kill it. The game's been in development for several years, and it's grown into an enormous project with branching storylines, voice acting, hand-drawn artwork, and a huge amount of written content. In late July, the developers announced that Act 6 was complete. That's a significant milestone, especially in a genre where many ambitious projects continue expanding without ever appearing to move closer to the finish line. Ravager doesn't have the massive concurrent numbers of the free-to-play games on this list. Its Steam peak is only a few hundred players, but its audience is extremely positive. It has more than 900 Steam reviews, with over 39% of those being positive. That level of engagement matters. Ravager's not trending because it suddenly went viral. It's trending because it reached an important development milestone while maintaining the trust of a dedicated audience. And honestly, completing a major act might be more impressive than briefly attracting thousands of curious players who disappear after a weekend. At number 6 is Sex, Secrets, and Used Tech. This game places you in charge of a secondhand electronics shop where discarded phones, computers, and other devices can contain private information about their former owners. From there, the game mixes shop management, investigation, relationship systems, and mature content. Sex, Secrets, and Used Tech technically released on June 25th, but July was its first complete month on the market. That's important because launch day player counts only tell part of the story. A lot of games attract a large wave of curiosity and then disappear almost immediately. This one peaked at nearly 3,500 concurrent players during launch and continued carrying hundreds of active players into August. It also collected close to 1,000 Steam reviews, with roughly 85% of players giving it a positive rating. That suggests it managed to retain at least some of its audience after the initial launch rush. The concept probably deserves some credit. Used electronics containing hidden information is a stronger gameplay hook than the usual adult game setup, and it gives the management mechanics a reason to exist within the story. At number 5 is Desire Empire. Desire Empire launched on July 23rd as a free-to-play adult business management simulator. The goal is to build a content empire by hiring models, upgrading studios, promoting shows, and expanding the business. It's basically a mature idle management game built around constant growth and upgrades. Desire Empire reached nearly 2,500 concurrent Steam players on its first day. It also gained more than 5,000 followers and several hundred reviews within a little over a week. That's a strong launch for a game that appeared fairly late in the month. But its player count dropped considerably after the initial spike, and the reviews have been more mixed than the games above it. So the question is whether Desire Empire has lasting appeal or whether players were simply curious about the premise. Either way, it made an immediate impact. It released with just over a week remaining in July and still became one of the month's most visible adult game launches. At number 4 is Hotel Tales. Hotel Tales arrived on July 31st, so it barely qualified for this report. The game combines hotel management, role-playing elements, the relationship systems, and a fantasy storyline involving the restoration of a mysterious hotel. Its opening response was strong. Hotel Tales entered August with more than 9,000 Steam followers and climbed past 1,000 concurrent players during its first full day. To be completely transparent, that player peak happened on August 1st, not July 31st. I'm including it because the activity was a direct continuation of a game released during the final hours of July. There just wasn't enough time to measure its launch performance before the calendar changed. Early reviews have been mostly positive, although there are already complaints about bugs, balancing, and some of the game's management systems. That means Hotel Tales could move in either direction at this point. It may continue to grow as more players discover it, or the launch audience might fall away if the early issues aren't addressed. Either way, reaching over 1,000 players almost immediately made it one of the most important releases at the end of the month. We'll probably see this one again in the August report for better or worse. At number 3 is Train 45. Train 45 is one of the most interesting success stories on this list. The game places you aboard a supernatural train where you investigate strange events, encounter anomalies, build relationships, and work toward multiple endings. It combines visual novel storytelling with exploration and anomaly detection mechanics. Train 45 launched near the end of June, but its player count reached an all-time high of more than 3,200 on July 1st. That's impressive on its own. What really pushed Train 45 into the top 3, however, was the audience response. By the beginning of August, it had more than 2,700 Steam reviews, and almost 98% of those reviews were positive. That's an exceptional rating for any game, especially one that attracted thousands of players. Train 45 proves why this ranking can't be based entirely on concurrent users. It didn't have the largest audience of July, but the people who played it overwhelmingly enjoyed it. That combination of strong visibility and distinctive gameplay hook and outstanding audience satisfaction earns Train 45 the number 3 position. At number 2 is With Your Coworker. With Your Coworker is another desktop companion game, this time featuring a cat girl named Yumi who stays on screen while you work, play games, or browse the internet. It includes idle mechanics, cosmetic items, character interactions, and other features designed to make Yumi feel like a persistent part of your desktop. The game technically released in June, but it reached its all-time peak on July 3rd with more than 5,000 concurrent players. Even more impressive, it continued carrying several thousand players throughout the month. By the beginning of August, With Your Coworker had close to 27,000 Steam followers and nearly 1,000 reviews. The reviews are positive overall, although not overwhelmingly so. Some players enjoyed the companion features, while others criticized the monetization and the limited amount of meaningful interaction. Still, there's no denying the numbers. This wasn't a game that attracted 5,000 players for a few hours and then vanished. Thousands continued running it weeks later. And that leads directly to the number one game because apparently desktop companions were the real adult game genre of July. The hottest adult game of July 2026 is Bongo Waifu. Bongo Waifu is a free desktop companion where your keyboard activity triggers interactions with an anime-style character living on your screen. You can customize your appearance, collect hundreds of accessories, and use Steam's inventory and marketplace systems. The game also received a major multiplayer update in July, adding rooms, Steam friend invitations, synchronized outfits, and interactions between players. On July 25th, Bongo Waifu reached an all-time peak of more than 8,000 concurrent players. That was the largest July-specific peak of any game in this top 10. It also ended the month with thousands of players still active and around 90% positive user reviews. And I find this fascinating. Adult games have spent years becoming larger and more complicated. Developers are building massive visual novels, management simulators, dungeon crawlers, role-playing games, and cinematic projects with thousands of renders. Then Bongo Waifu shows up, lives on your desktop, reacts when you press a key, and then pulls in 8,000 players. That doesn't mean players don't want large games, but it does show that a focused concept with low friction can sometimes outperform a far more ambitious project. You don't need to commit to a 40-hour story to learn a complicated combat system. You install it, you put the character on your desktop, and you continue doing whatever you were already doing. Bongo Waifu had the strongest combination of July momentum, active players, audience reception, and continued engagement. That makes it the number one adult game of July 2026. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these games have you played, and which one surprised you the most? I'm especially interested in hearing from anyone who spent time with Train 45, Hotel Tales, or one of the desktop companion games. And remember, this list measures attention and momentum. It doesn't necessarily mean that these are the 10 best games available. So if you enjoyed this report, subscribe to the channel. I'm planning to make this a monthly series so we can track which games are growing, which ones are falling off, and which new releases appear out of nowhere. Until next time, I'm Scav, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
One more demo, one more scene, one more bro, what does this even mean? Monster girls in magic schools, fan service breaking all the rules. Steam page said, mature themes, that was underselling everything. But if the story's good and the art's okay, you know I'm gonna press play, but don't blame me. I just hit start, the plot got spicy and so did the art. We play loot games after midnight, bad decisions in the soft blue light.